Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the morning grind. It is so great to see you this morning. Man, things have been busy over here. I did not get nearly anything that I was trying to get done yesterday done. But as you can see, probably I posted a lot of clips from the Dancy interview, and I still have more to go, and some other videos as well last night. That basically took all of my time over there, and I've got some comments on that to say on that. But all the people, Chaos Incarna is here. Joe is here. Theo is here. Good morning, Desist. I don't know. I mean, this is MLK Junior Day, right? So I saw that Free League was talking about something. They're out in Europe. So I saw Free League had released something about open licenses for their works. But I don't think that I wouldn't be expecting too much out of other people over here in the U.S. today. But I could be wrong about that. If something happens, then let me know. We will cut in. Chaos Incarna, good morning. About to finish my Evil Elves from the Mage of the Mirror set. Cool. we didn't get to paint last night because I thought that working on the other stuff regarding the OGL was more important. But I miss it. I was like, man, there's so many miniatures stacked over there. So, and I've got the Mage of the Mirror things miniatures primed. Down to just the skin washes. Then it should be on to solid unless I go OCD and start nitpicking. Hey, it's fantastic. So Pathfinder selling out doesn't surprise me. Theo says, my flag said yesterday that their distributor is out of stock of the Pathfinder 2 core rulebook and the DMG. So lots of stuff going on here. Okay, so in the news area that I wanted to bring up, now, as was brought up in the comments section, and it's fantastic. We have a fantastic community, I think, when we're doing something like this here in the chat in order to correct, rules problems or anything else that's going on. We also have a great community as far as the comments go, it seems, in just the YouTube videos, because it was brought up in the comments that there was an error. There was an error in the video about will it fix everything if Wizards of the Coast releases a new OGL, like an update. No, not a new update. Not new OGL, an update to the existing OGL that is identical to 1.0A, except for it adds the word irrevocable. I did a video on that last night, and there was an error in it because some people were saying, because I had been thinking exclusively, really, in terms of back propagation of licenses. That's been a real big concern of mine ever since I saw that in the 1.1. If you agree to a certain license, then can Wizards of the Coast write a new license and retroactively apply it to to you, even though you never agreed to the new one. So I was very much thinking in terms of retroactive application of new licenses. But what is extremely important to think about is the forward propagation of licenses. And this is extremely important. It goes to the idea, once again, it supports the idea this cannot be undone. The horses have left the barn, and now Wizards of the Coast are trying to shut the barn doors after that, as people in the comments have used. And I like that metaphor because I think that was my initial situation that I thought, that is the situation. That you can't un-OGL something. So that's why I was surprised at the leak to begin with, because that's what I had always thought and always believed. So this idea of the forward propagation is extremely important. It's an extremely important part to understand. And it does mean it gives us the mechanism for connecting existing open gaming content, which cannot be revoked, that's been published under any version, such as the SRD, and then bringing it forward to a new license. So all that's very important. So what I did is I took a deep dive into Section 9 of the OGL, which that section has to do with the updating of the licenses. And I put one video out today, this morning, about the deep dive, because it's a 3-video series then that goes into that update section in detail, ending with part 3, which will come out. I just scheduled for 5 p.m. tonight. That does describe the mechanism why that could help us. It doesn't completely help us, and I don't think it does not change my opinion that what we need is clarity from Wizards of the Coast that 1.0A as it stands is both irrevocable and not able to be deauthorized. That's still the goal. But there is this other workaround that's not nearly as elegant and is stuff that the OGL was supposed to prevent anyway. So anyway, I did clip out the error that was in that video. I clipped as in remove it. YouTube will let you edit something out. So the other points of that video, I believe, still stand, but there was like 1 minute and 20 seconds or something like that was an error. So I removed that, so it's no longer out there. So if you watch that video, you may want to check out the correction and the adjustment in thinking that's coming out. So I want to be clear on that. Captain Joystick says, worth noting that for people interested in Pathfinder but can't get the book, the rules are available on Archives of Nethris, free and supported by Paizo. Okay, fantastic. Good to know. Thank you for passing along that info. Chase Street says, I never bought the beginner box. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the rules are laid out in it. Very well, as it turns out. Okay, one other note, and this is the first time I've put this out as far as news goes. Bob Tarantino agreed to talk to me. So he's going to talk to me. Bob Tarantino is the guy who wrote the dissertation on the OGL. And he reached out to me, actually. And so I asked him if he would be willing to be on a live stream. So he said, yes, that's going to be tomorrow night. So tomorrow night is, generally we'd play video games. But I'm not going to do that tomorrow night because that's a time at which Bob is available. And so tomorrow night, we will have a discussion with Bob. I've been putting together notes to talk to Bob about. If there are things that you want to be sure that Bob asks, I got to spend more time making sure that I've got all those. But if there are questions that you want to ask for Bob, we'll do some public questions and stuff like that, like we did with Ryan Dancy. So that is tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. Today's Monday, so that would be tomorrow. So that is also happening. And I'm trying to get another, the owner of another publishing company, major publishing company, to talk to me this week as well. And so that might be Wednesday. We're trying to look at Wednesday, but I don't want to announce who it is or confirm that yet because he hasn't actually. He hasn't actually confirmed that yet. So I'm working on that. So we might hear from not only Bob but somebody else in the community. Yes, he's great. Yep, he's a good dude, and I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation. So let's go. So our goal here today is to continue to learn how to play Pathfinder. We've got the core rule book right here, which we were going to look at, and we have available for reference. But really, this is the player's guide, the beginner's box hero's handbook guide. And as we were saying, this is a continuation of a series we've been doing here. This is like day 3 or 4 that we've been looking at Pathfinder. We did an unboxing of the Pathfinder box set and found it very much superior to the Dungeons and Dragons box set in a lot of ways. And one of them is that, hey, even if you just have this, you can play a lot of Pathfinder, it turns out. A lot of Pathfinder. Good morning, Retro Nerd Girl. Good morning. Yes, King Crew says, AKA Tuesday. It really was. Absolutely. Okay, so let's go to the messages, and then let's start learning specifically about the encounters in Pathfinder. That's where we left off. So this is a big day, big part of this. The Morning Grind is brought to you by World Anvil. For all the writers out there, World Anvil has all the tools to help you write, organize, present, and publish rich settings with complex characters. Write, world build, and manage your story all in a single platform. Use the code MORNINGGRIND to get 40% off yearly subscriptions. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the world of Italtus. Italtus is a new game setting designed for 5e rules. It rekindles the fire of classic heroic fantasy game worlds, but reimagined and refreshed. Check it out on Italtus.com and get it for your table. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the Thrones and Bones Viking-inspired fantasy RPG setting. It includes 37 new creatures and monsters, including the Vol Raven, a part raven, part wolf creature created when a raven feasts on an improperly buried battle-slain Jarl. Get the books on DriveThruRPG today. And thank you for being here with me live on The Morning Grind. And if you're watching on replay, welcome to you as well. It's great to have you here. If you're enjoying The Morning Grind, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It will really help the channel grow, and I would be very thankful. We also have the Ravenkeep Discord server you can join if you would like to be a part of the community. Alright, that's what you need to know. Let's get to the main topic. Okay. Oh, we didn't breathe and sip, I realized. So let's breathe and sip, and then we'll get into this. So, everybody got your drink with you? Got your favorite drink, whatever it is? I've got Cultist coffee this morning. It's cold here, so I needed some warm coffee this morning. Deep inhale, complete exhale, and then we'll do that twice and have a sip. That is a great way to start the morning with everybody. All right, let's go over here. Let's activate the auxiliary camera. Right here. Let's turn that off right there. And like I said, we got the core rule book here to reference as we need it, if we need it. And sometimes we have. But on the other hand, we found that there's so much info to go through, even here in the beginner's box, that's where we're starting. And last time we left off right when we were about to get into encounters. And I've been really excited about Pathfinder as we've been getting into it. It's I'm excited. Maybe we have to be developed for this. Tomorrow we'll be working on Faded Edge, though. I need to work on that. I got a meeting again about scripts and stories this afternoon, and I got to pay attention to that. So much going on. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're saying about encounters here. It says, when you're in a tense fight and every individual action counts, you enter an encounter. So this is changing up the, basically like what type of rule system you're using. Because now time is divided into rounds, each of which is 6 seconds of time in the game world. 10 rounds is 1 minute. Every round, each creature in the combat takes a turn in an established order called initiative. An encounter takes place following those 4 steps. So roll for initiative. So we've got to figure out how they use initiative is we've talked a lot about what type of initiative systems we like and what we don't like here on the channel. So roll for initiative. When the encounter starts, the GM calls for initiative. Roll your perception unless you were avoiding notice in the lead up to the battle, in which case you roll stealth. The GM rolls initiative for anyone other than the heroes in this encounter. Unlike a typical check, where the result is compared to the DC, the results of initiative rolls are ranked from highest to lowest. Play around. The round starts with the creature who rolled the highest initiative taking their turn first. The process of taking your turn is described on page 64. So, okay, we're about to get to that. Once the first creature has taken their turn, the one with the next highest initiative takes their turn, and so forth. If initiative results are tied, enemies go before heroes. Oh, okay. Enemies go before heroes in the result of tie. If a creature on the same side tie, they choose what order to go the first time their initiative comes up. After that, everyone's place in the initiative order doesn't change for the rest of the encounter. Once everyone has taken a turn, the round ends and the next one begins. So this does seem similar to the way 5th edition is doing that. And we've talked about the Dungeons and Dragons initiative system, and I think there's videos on that on the channel here. Well, so we'll have to see how this works, and if this happens to have some of the same problems, because we are using a D20 here, and we're gonna have to see what are people's like perception modifiers. And that's we were talking about this, that one of our problems here with the D20 is that it provides a lot of randomness in a flat distribution, and sometimes our modifiers are not all that much. So I would be interested in knowing. So it's a very random kind of thing. So we were looking at the cleric last time. So what, for instance, would be the cleric's perception? Well, this cleric has a perception of +7. So I mean, we're still rolling a 20-sided die and generating 1 to 20. But the cleric at level 1 here is starting off with a +7 in perception. So that is a lot to. I mean, that's a large bonus right there. It's not like a 1 or a 2 or a 3. So that's good. So that helps. It's not like we're just saying, what is it, like dexterity modifier or something, in which case that'd be +1. So our perception over here is our wisdom. And that cleric has high wisdom. So that's why that's so good. Plus the proficiency bonus. And so we are trained in perception. And that's giving us a +7 in initiative perception, which means in initiative. Let's look at another character just to see how that goes. What is their situation in it? It might be that the cleric has an unusually good perception score. Let's see here. Joe says initiative is circumstantial, perception is generic, but you can use other skills if it makes more narrative sense, like the stealth that was coming up. So Ezrin, the wizard, has a +4. The rogue here has a +7 as well. The rogue has a +7 because of a +2 wisdom, but a +5 as a proficiency bonus. The fighter has a +5. Okay. So now we know at level 1 what type of spread we're looking at. We hadn't even started the Dungeon Master's book yet. I got so many boxes laying around here. Okay, so let's go on here. So once the first creature has taken their turn, we were just talking about that. Oh, but the other issue here is that once you're going to roll to determine initiative order, but then this initiative is also set, and there are advantages and disadvantages to that. That means that we're not rolling every round, so we reduce the amount of time that we spend rolling for initiative, and we're not trying to do it every single round, which a lot of people came to the conclusion that theoretically we kind of like. It just takes up too much time at the table. But then you generate this order, and then everybody is locked in on that order once we go here. So if it's less, but the problem is that it was why establish such a random order in Dungeons and Dragons? So maybe this is less random because the modifiers are higher. And maybe we do have a greater weight to the people who should be moving first. Athletics on grappling. I see people talking about grappling over here. Okay, let's see what we're doing. Talking about step 3, beginning the next round. Initiative is like a clock. After all combatants have taken their turns, you'll start a new round. Go back to the highest initiative number, and everyone takes their turn in the same order in the new round. Iron Chestnut. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Welcome. Dr. Octagon. Welcome. I remember the grappling and other combat options in 3E to be most tactically interesting of all D&D. So, welcome to everybody. Make some coffee, Vision. Sounds good. All right, so the end of the encounter. Once everyone on one side is defeated, some sort of truce is reached, or another event or circumstance stops the combat. The encounter ends. You and other participants no longer follow the initiative order, and the game returns to exploration. So that was another phase right here. We had talked about exploration, was that 2 days ago? So the exploration phase, once you hit an encounter, you go into an encounter. Kind of reminds me of some of those old school RPGs on the video game RPGs, where you're walking around the map, then you hit the encounter, and then you go into a different set of rules. So that's what we got here. At the end of the encounter, the GM may award experience points to the party, or you may find treasure to divvy up. When reaching your initiative in combat, you get to take your turn. You can use your actions on your turn, and some special rules apply at the start and end of your turn. Here's what you do during each part of your turn. 1. Start of your turn. If you've created an effect with a duration lasting a certain number of rounds, like many spells do, reduce the number of rounds remaining by 1. The effect ends if the duration reaches 0. If you're dying, roll a recovery check. See dying on page 70. Lose the reaction from your previous turn and regain your 3 actions and 1 reaction. You can't save up unused actions or reactions from previous turn. You just clear them. Makes sense. If a condition or effect prevents you from using some but not all of your actions, you still regain the remaining actions. If a condition or effect prevents you from using all of your actions, don't regain any actions from your reaction. Hey, BGD. Welcome. Using actions. Now that you have your actions, it's time to use them. You can perform your actions in any order you wish, but you have to complete one before beginning another. For instance, you couldn't strike while in the midst of a stride unless a special activity lets you. You can pick your actions from the list of basic actions on page 65. Right here, these are all of our basic actions. And any actions you get from your class. Once you're done spending actions, go to the end of your turn. At the end of your turn, lose any of your 3 actions remaining. You keep your reaction if you didn't use it on your turn. You lose it at the start of your next turn. If you have a persistent damage condition, page 66, you take the damage at this time. After taking the damage, you can attempt the flat check to end the persistent damage. And the flat checks weren't modified by anything. End any effects that last until the end of your turn. Resolve anything else specified to happen at the end of your turn. Your turn is over, and the next creature begins. Actions. So, during an encounter, things you can do are represented by actions. So, we've got this special symbol right here. We've seen this before. But if you're just coming in, all these actions have this symbol here, and that represents an action. So, you've got 3 actions on your turn. So, that action, so if you do something with that, it's 1 action. If you do something, you've got other symbols to represent 2 actions and 3 actions, because it seems to me on first blush we need a different kind of word here, because these are your basic actions. And each one of them takes 1 action. So we've got actions as in how many you've got, but some of the basic actions or some of the other actions can actually take more than 1 action. It seems like if these were actions over here, it seems like this should say like basic activity or something to help divide this. But maybe that's not important. But it seems like with all the clarity that they've done here, that would be something that would have been done. But maybe it's not like that at all. Okay. Well, now here we have a iron chestnut. Okay, says one action is an action. Two or more actions is an activity. Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. See, I love having people in the live chat to talk about that. Let's just see right back here. And so let's see how we define action, which is fantastic. We have this. Let's see if we get action in here. Actions. An action is defined as a discrete task that generates a discrete. Excuse me. Let me start over. Actions. Discrete tasks that generate a specific effect, possibly requiring a check to determine the result. Actions can be used to accomplish a variety of things, such as moving, attacking, casting a spell, or interacting with an item or object. Most creatures can use up to 3 actions during a turn. An activity. All right. So this is what Chestnut's bringing up. A category of action that typically takes more than one action. So an activity is a category of action. So it is an action, but it's a specific category of action. Activities on your turn take 2 actions or 3 actions. See, I think I still would revise the wording here, but I think we understand what it's saying here, because it says that activity is a category of actions, but it can take 2 actions or 3 actions. If it's a category of actions, but I think we get it. Exploration and downtime activities can take minutes, hours, or days. Now we know. And also, Dr. Octagon points out that free actions do not take up actions. And then Captain Joystick says, in moments of confusion, my group calls them action buckets. Oh, yeah, there is a Discord server. Thank you for pointing that out, Stray. So if you want to be part of the Ravenkeep Discord server, that's where we hang out. Please do join us. Stray just posted the link. Thank you, Link. Thank you, Stray. Okay. So, we're just looking at actions. During an encounter, things you can do are represented by actions. Single actions can be completed in a very short time. Their effects are simple, and all the effects happen within that single action. Activities take longer and represent... Well, here's the word activity right here. Activities take longer and represent multiple single actions. Activities use the symbols if they take 2 actions or 3 actions. During combat, you can't split an activity over multiple turns, so it's not possible to, for example, spend 1 action of a 2-action activity spell on 1 turn and complete it on the next. Activities that take longer than 3 actions say so in the text and don't have an icon. You can't use such actions in combat because you can't complete them in a single turn. An activity might contain several single actions within it, such as making a strike as part of the activity. These sub-actions work just as they do normally. For instance, the sudden charge activity has a fighter stride twice, then strike, but it only costs 2 actions if they do it at all instead of 3. Now, a reaction. Reactions, this is the symbol for reaction. We have the curved arrow here. Can be used anytime their special trigger happens, whether or not it's your turn. Reactions are usually triggered by other creatures or events outside of your control. All fighters have the attack of opportunity reaction, but not every character has an ability to spend their reaction on. You don't have to use a reaction when the trigger comes up if you don't want to. So reactions primarily, we were talking about last time, come as the result of a trigger, but you're not required to use the reaction when it is triggered. In an encounter, you only get 1 reaction each round, so you can't react more than once per round. Outside of encounters, you use the reaction is more flexible and up to the GM. Well, let's look at actions while exploring. Then I want to look at basic actions, because then we move on to attacks specifically. So we'll look at actions before attacks. Actions while exploring. When you're not in an encounter, you don't have to track when you get your 3 actions or reactions, although you can still use actions and reactions as needed. The Game Master tells you how much time you have to get things done and determine what actions and reactions you can use if there's confusion. Activities with exploration traits take a long time to carry out, so you can use them only outside of encounters. In addition to the exploration activities found on 62, You can find more in the skills section on page 50. And we did look at exploration. And he uses the word activity right here as well. Exploration activities. That was up here. That was avoid, notice, defend, detect magic, hustle, investigate, scout, search, sense direction, and track. So those were specifically called exploration activities in the book. Okay. What are our basic actions? Every creature can do common tasks. Let's get some coffee here. Every creature can do common tasks using basic actions. You'll interact, step, stride, and strike a great deal. Many feats and other actions tell you to use one of these basic actions or modify them to produce different results. For example, a large number of activities include a strike. As long as you can act, you can also speak without spending any actions. You can usually speak a single sentence or so per round. Sign language works in the same way, but you need free hands to do it, and the recipient of your message needs to see you rather than hear you. Special uses of speech, such as attempting a deception check, to lie, spending actions, or follow their own rules. So we can drop prone. And this is a trait. We said these things right here are traits that are giving you some type of tag here that reference other rules. Welcome, everybody who is coming in. It's good to see you. Happy to have you. So, drop prone. It says you may fall, you fall and gain the prone condition, page 71. We're going to look at a lot more conditions here in a minute. While prone, you have the flat-footed condition, which gives you a -2 circumstance bonus to AC and attack rolls, and you can't move except to stand. Escape. And that's an attack. You attempt to escape from the grappled or restrained condition. Usually one creature that has you grappled or restrained. Attempt an attack roll using your proficiency bonus or fists against the athletics DC of the creature grabbing you. You can attempt an acrobatics or athletics check instead of an attack roll if that statistic is higher, but this action still has the attack trait. On a critical success, you get free and remove the grappled or restrained condition imposed by your chosen target. You can then stride up to 5 feet. Success. You get free and remove the grappled or restrained condition imposed by your target. Or critical failure, you don't get free and you can't attempt to escape until your next turn. Other types of escape, in some cases, you might be grabbed by a spell, hazard, or the like instead of a creature. Your check to escape works the same way, but you might use a different DC. Use the thievery DC of the creature who tied you up, the spell DC for a spell, or the listed escape DC of another impediment. I like how this game is structured. I like how the rules are structured. It's they've clearly gone to a lot of work to make it structured and clear. Like, especially like when we're talking about taking your turn, like this is exactly what happens. That looks like a lot, but then we've defined where this stuff happens in the turn. So when it comes up, you should be able to find it. And this goes to the idea that, well, if this is released, so we want to know what the Pathfinder SRD kind of version is, so we can copy this, because that's come up in the OGL discussions. I do want to make a video on that, because it seems like a lot of people in the comments on those videos, some of which blew up last night, by the way, some people have been saying that you don't need the SRD, you don't need the OGL to use the SRD, or that the SRD is not copyrightable anyway, and that's not true. The purpose here is the SRD is copyrightable, so whatever the Pathfinder SRD would be. But the reason we have that would be as well. But the purpose of that would be that if this is the description of a turn, or this is the description of an attack, this is the canonical description of an attack, because even though the game mechanics are not copyrighted, move that, roll this die compared to this number, whatever, this expression can be. And it's important that if you're writing another rule book and you need to describe how to make an attack, that you not only are describing the same mechanics, but you're using the exact same expression. And that's what the SRD, the OGL and the SRD allow, because that way every publisher doesn't have to come up with their own way to describe how to make an attack, because that leads to intense amounts of confusion in the game. So if this is the way that Pathfinder is, the mechanics of Pathfinder, but also the canonical expression of those mechanics, we want to be able to use those in our own games in order to keep everything as consistent and not generate confusion. Donald Cowie, welcome. Says, I asked a question. Did you look at 13th Age RPG as a replacement to D&D for yourself? I have not looked at that one yet. That one is still on the list. There are lots of RPGs to look at, but I have not looked at 13 Age yet. But it's on the still on the list. Dr. Octagon says 3rd E is the most rational or logical version of D&D. It's been a long time since I played 3rd edition, and it has the best character design. God, I have to. I don't. I remember playing a lot of 3rd edition. For some reason, I have more of an emotional connection, I suppose, to AD&D, because we played a lot of that. We did swap over to 3rd edition and played a lot of it. Amir Hussein says, the math is so well thought out, you can improvise really easily. If you want to impress a professor, then maybe you could just roll your lore skill against the professor's will DC. Dr. Octagon says, yeah, the concept of attack of opportunity is something that is used in non-D&D games now. Yeah, and Amir says, the other thing the OGL has allowed is people can and have made online character and monster builders, searchable sites, and can copy the actual text. Yeah. So, let's see here. Escape, interact. You manipulate an object or the terrain. And, this is just, I like the generality of interact. That way you don't have to specify what, the million different ways you could interact with something. And of course, tabletop games use this too. Here's an object. If you use the interact action on it, you get these things. Like Mansions of Madness does that. So interact says you manipulate an object or the terrain. You can grab an unattended object, pull something out of a belt pouch, open up a door, or something similar. Releasing or dropping something doesn't cost an action, but it must happen between your other actions or activities, not during them. Releasing something doesn't trigger a reaction. Okay, so that's free, but it has to happen between actions. Leap, that's a move. Oh, so like interact has this manipulate tag. And manipulate something, if somebody's manipulating something by you, for instance, that could trigger an attack of opportunity. You take a careful, short jump with leap. The distance you leap depends on whether you're leaping horizontally or vertically. Jumping a great distance requires a long jump or a high jump. Horizontal. Jump up to 10 feet horizontally or up to 15 feet if your speed is at least 30 feet. You land in the space where the leap ends, meaning you can typically clear a 5-foot gap or a 10-foot gap if your speed is 30 feet or more. Vertical, a jump up to 3 feet vertically and 5 feet horizontally into an elevated surface. Seek. You scan for signs of creatures and objects. So that is both concentrate and secret. Now, the secret trait, that's telling you that the game master rolls this. The game master rolls. And your check for you. So that's included in the game when that does. When that happens. You scan for signs of creatures or objects. The GM might limit the amount of space you can search in with just one action. Usually the area is 30 feet across if you're just looking for creatures, or 10 feet if you're looking for an object. Searching for a larger area or in doing something in-depth, or an in-depth search is longer activity that takes an amount of time the GM determines would be reasonable. The GM attempts a secret perception check. So the GM does this for you and compares the result to the stealth DC of creatures in the area you can't see, or the DC to detect each object in the area. The GM sets the DC for objects. Magic like invisibility might keep a creature hidden even if your attempt to seek it goes well. On a critical success, if you were searching for creatures, you can clearly tell where the creature is. If you were searching for an object, you learn its location. On a success, if you were searching for a creature and knew roughly where it was hidden, you can now clearly tell where it is. If you did not know roughly where it was, the GM points out that to you. If you were searching for an object, you learn its location or get a clue to its whereabouts as determined by the GM. Okay. Stand, you stand up from lying down, losing the prone condition. Step is also a move. That's a move. Step, you carefully move 5 feet. Unlike most types of movement, stepping doesn't trigger reactions, so it can be triggered. It does not trigger reactions that can be triggered by move actions or upon leaving or entering a square. You can't step into difficult terrain. Stride is you move up to your speed. And then strike, you attack a person with a weapon you're wielding or with your fist, targeting one creature within your reach for a melee attack or within range for a ranged attack. Roll the attack roll for the attack you're using and compare the result of the target creature's AC. If you hit, Roll a damage roll using the die for your weapon or fist. Add your strength if you made a melee attack. Your target loses HP, hit points equal to the damage you deal. On a critical success, if you beat the target's AC by 10 or more, you get a critical hit after rolling double your damage. So that sounds like you're not rolling the double dice there, but you're actually doubling the damage that you've actually rolled. So that's going to move on. That leads us right into attack. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Okay, so Piccaditty says the PF2E SRD, aka the PRD, is the archive of Nethris site. Okay, great. So that's why we need to check it out. Well, that came up earlier, and that's why it's available free. Then, okay, I guess that makes sense. So, excellent. We even have the Pathfinder 2 SRD, the PRD, ready to go. Shay says, yeah, I played a lot more first and second edition than any other version. Of course, that's mainly because I started a long time ago. So Amir says that secret checks are very much a table preference. A lot of games ignore secret checks. I like them, though. So that's if the GM is rolling and hiding something from you. But Dr. Octagon says secret checks are essential. That's what the Game Master screen is for. All right, so let's see about attacking then. Yeah, welcome to everybody. I see we have 55 people watching right now. 57, just went up to 57. That is a morning grind record. That is a morning grind record, I believe. 57 for the morning grind. Welcome to everybody. So glad to have you here. Let's get some coffee. Let's have some coffee. Cheers to all of you. And now let's talk about our attack rolls. These do we get clarification in here that we're not doubling dice damage, or we're actually doubling the actual damage rolled? That may tell us in here specifically, but it sounded like we're not doubling dice damage. I kind of think if people like rolling dice, doubling the dice damage is often fun. Attacks. You will make an attack roll when you strike and for some other actions. For most of the attack rolls, you'll compare the result against your target's armor class. There are three main types of attack rolls: melee attack rolls, ranged attack rolls, and spell attack rolls. Some skills can be used to make attacks, such as athletics being used to grapple someone rather than damage them. Multiple attack penalty. If you attack more than once on your turn, you take a multiple attack penalty. This penalty is shown on the table below. If your attack has the agile trait, such as the fist and some weapons, the penalties listed in the agile penalty column aren't as high. So first attack, none. Second attack penalty, -5. Third attack penalty, -10. You're basically going all out attack in this way. Agile, none, -4, and -8. Always calculate your multiple attack penalty for a weapon you're using on that attack. If you attack with a long sword, then a short sword, which has the agile trait. If you attack with a long sword and then a short sword, if you're like dual wielding, traditional ranger thing, right? For whatever reason, I've always wondered where the dual wielding for rangers came from. It seems like it's been in role playing forever. I mean, I believe it was in AD&D. I believe that was the case, but it's not like it's a holdover from Aragorn. I wonder what the original genesis was that rangers dual wield weapons a lot. I wonder what that is. But anyway, so if you attack with a long sword, then a short sword, which has the agile trait, the attack with the short sword is at -4, even though your first attack with that weapon isn't agile. This penalty resets every turn. It also applies during the turn, so you don't have to keep it. It also applies only during your turn, so you don't have to keep track of it. If you can perform an attack of opportunity or similar reaction. So that's important too. It only applies on your turn. So if you're attacking because of an attack of opportunity as a reaction, then you don't have to worry about remembering what you did on your turn. That's nice. So we're going to double everything. Crits double everything. Captain Joystick says you double the damage rolled. If your weapon already has the deadly trait, you roll an additional die. You roll an additional die the size that indicated in the deadly trait. That is a good thing to point out here. We did point that out when we were looking at weapons, but we noticed that weapons have a lot of traits, and we liked that as we were looking through here because there were additional ways to distinguish weapons from one another. That was one of them. So we've got different traits on weapons as well. So it looks like Captain Jack is giving us the answer. You double the damage you actually rolled on your normal dice. But if your weapon is deadly, such as a rapier, let's see what weapons are deadly on here. A rapier, a longsword, a short bow. Excuse me, not longsword, long bow, short bow, star knife. Deadly. You have an additional die you roll on a critical. So like the short bow has deadly D10, so you would roll that extra D10. The rapier has deadly D8, so you are getting to roll more dice. Yeah, the deadly or fatal weapon. I mean, if you're going to be, it does seem to make sense, right? If you're going to have a deadly weapon, if you're going to be using a weapon anyway, and you're going into a dungeon, probably be nice to have a deadly or a deadly or a fatal one. We've jumped up to 66 people watching. Thank you so much, everybody. Welcome. It's so good to see you. Very glad to have you here. Yeah, deadly and fatal traits make crits even better. Vision says, I have a link the rules lawyer shared out last night that has the link for every item and monster in the Pathfinder from this Archives of Nethris. Should I post it Discord? Absolutely. Absolutely post it in Discord. That would be great. We've got a place to talk Pathfinder in the Discord server. Here is the link to that. Well, no, Chase is disagreeing. He says that on crits, you double the number of dice rolled to calculate damage. If you do a 1d10 damage, you do 2d10. So we will seek that because it seems like we're rolling. It seems like it's the other way, but we will see. I don't know if Dritz is the origin of those two weapons because I think that preceded Dritz. Didn't the Ranger using two weapons in the character class precede the emergence of Dritz? I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I thought that the reason he used two weapons was because of that. Yeah, okay, so we got confirmation that Rangers have dual wield in second editions. This has been a while. Okay, so range penalty. We're about to get to damage. Ranged and thrown weapons are less accurate against targets further away. The weapon's range increment determines this interval. As long as your target is or is within the listed range increment, it targets the first range increment, you take no penalty to the attack roll. Beyond that distance, you take -2 penalty for each additional increment beyond the first. Both of the multiple attack penalties and the range penalties can apply to the same attack, giving a big penalty on your second or third attack to attack somebody far away. Damage. If you make an attack and it hits, or you successfully cast a spell to harm your foe, you'll roll dice to determine how much you hurt an enemy. Roll the kind and number of dice indicated by your weapon or spell, and add any number listed for the ability modifier. For example, many weapons say to add your strength to the damage for melee strikes. The damage you deal has a type, such as piercing or fire, which can matter since some creatures take more or less damage depending on the type. The damage you deal decreases the target's hit points by the same amount, so a creature that takes 6 points of damage loses 6 hit points. If the penalties to an attack would reduce the damage to 0 or below, you still deal 1 damage. So that's good to know too. So if the penalty, you can't deal 0 damage. If you hit, you're always going to deal at least 1. For example, if you threw a dagger and rolled a 1 on the damage roll while you had a negative 1 penalty to damage rolls, you still deal 1 damage to your target. So that's important. Doubling and halving. You might need to double or halve your damage depending on the action used. For instance, many spells deal half damage if your enemy succeeds at save, full damage if it fails, or double damage if it critically fails. You double or half the damage after rolling rather than changing the number of dice you roll. Okay, so there we go. Now we have that explicitly said. So you double or have the number after rolling the dice rather than changing the number of dice you roll. Add any bonuses or penalties before you double or halve. Oh, well, that's also important. Add any bonus or penalties before you double or halve. So if it's 1d8 plus 3 and you roll a 4, you get 7 and double that to 14. Because I think D&D does that another way. Because I think we've always played double dice damage, but that didn't change the modifier. That's maybe raw, but that's at least the way we've already played. So this is explicit. We've got the answer here. Add any bonuses or penalties before you double or halve. Special damage, like extra damage from a rogue's sneak attack, is doubled or halved too. If you have the damage, it's an odd number, round down. Oh, okay. So Emir is pointing out that the Pathfinder 1 and Starfinder rules are there as well. So you might end up in Pathfinder 1 by mistake. Hello, L Knives Not Gaming. Good to have you here. Great to see you. So fatal, yeah, so got a clarification. Armidian says fatal can also be a fun trait. It changes the base dices in addition to the extra die. So 1d6 plus 4 on normal can become 1d10 plus 4 times 2 plus 1d10. That is a lot of damage. That is a lot of damage. Oh, really? Okay, so it says, Chase says, I've double-checked the core rule book. Okay. The GM has the final say in whether to roll the dice twice or just double the damage. Either way can be correct. Yes, but as we just read, you do double the modifier as well, and that's important. Okay. So, persistent damage, like bleeding and being on fire, hurts you over time. We use being on fire as an example a lot here on this stream, on this channel, it seems like. So, when you gain persistent damage, you don't take it right away. Instead, you take it at the end of your turn each round. After you take the damage, you attempt a DC flat check, roll 15 or higher on the D20 without adding anything to see if you recover from the persistent damage. So I hope everybody has also subscribed to the channel. I'd really like it if you would subscribe. That would really help me out. We're trying to grow here in 2023. It'd be a very positive place in the Geekverse. So if you're watching and haven't subscribed, please do. So the flat checks, yes. So the definition of a flat check, we had that definition elsewhere in this book. And a flat check is just one with a DC that you do not have any modifier at all to. So, but that is interesting that persistent damage, this is any persistent damage like bleeding or being on fire, hurts you over time. When you gain persistent damage, you don't take it right away. You do it at the end of your turn. After you take damage, it's just telling you the DC is a flat 15 to get over it, regardless of whether you're bleeding or being on fire. Your DC is just flat 15. So I guess that's easy to remember. If you're taking persistent damage, you don't have to check again or remember what the DC of that particular damage was. You just get to you just get a flat 15. Hey, Guitar Guy Nick. Good to see you. Oh, Aaron. Aaron says, hi, this is fantastic. I would be very interested in Mutant Chronicles if you ever wanted to look at that game. I've never gotten to play it, but I like it a lot. I would like to look at that one too. I mean, we've looked at about 60 different RPGs on this channel so far on the Morning Grind over the past 2 months. So there's lots of stuff to go through, but we have not looked at Mutant Chronicles yet. That one's on the list. It's not necessarily on the short list, but that one's on it. I don't know anything about that one either, so I would like to go through it as well. So, immunities, weaknesses, and resistances. Damage might affect a creature differently if it has an immunity, weakness, or resistance to that damage type. Immunity prevents the creature from taking any damage at all. A weakness causes the creature to increase the damage they take by the listed amount, and resistance prevents the listed damage amount. So if you have a spell, used a spell that deals 10 fire damage, a creature that's immune to fire would take no damage. A creature with weakness 5 to fire would lose 15 hit points, and a creature with resistance 5 to fire would lose 5 hit points. This adjustment applies to every instance of damage. So if you make 3 strikes that deal bludgeoning damage against a creature with resistance 5 to bludgeoning damage, it would take 5 less damage from each of the hero's 3 strikes. Makes sense. Usually heroes don't have immunities or weaknesses, although the resist energy wizard spell can give a resistance to some damage types. Immunity matters for more than just damage. A creature that's immune to certain traits is completely unaffected by anything with that trait, and one with immunity to a condition can't gain that condition. For instance, a creature without a mind lists mental as part of its immunities. Not only would it take no damage, but a spell with the mental trait wouldn't do anything to it at all. In some cases, a creature is immune to part of this attack spell or not the rest. The GM determines whether this is the case. For instance, if you hit a monster that's immune to fire with a flaming sword, the sword itself would still damage with slashing damage, but the extra fire damage wouldn't do anything. This game seems so well structured and thought out. Guitar Guy Nick says, persistent damage is particularly nasty when you go down because it adds more to your dying value. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. Or not cool, depending on whether it's happening to you. So once you go down, and you're on fire, you've got to start these dying conditions and things like that, which we've read, but we need to look at some more. And if you're, on fire, ouch. BJ Seward says, have I checked out Open Legend? I have got, where is, did I put that over here? I would pull out that book. Oh, wait, look. So I did, here it is. I backed Open Legend on Kickstarter because I was interested in what it was doing. So I do have the Open Legend book and I have read it, but it has been a while. But we haven't gone over Open Legend on the Morning Grind yet. So Open Legend is another one that we need to get to and go through and see what it's all about. Are you playing it? Oh, we just hit 70 people. 70 people here on the Morning Grind. Typically on the Morning Grind, we go for about an hour here, but I do definitely want to get through at least encounters. I want to keep going. There's other things that I got to do today. I got to take another meeting this afternoon and stuff like that, but I do want to get through this. So we might go a little bit longer here and go ahead and get through this because I'm interested in Pathfinder and who knows, we may want to develop for it. So I want to keep going. So we're going to continue with encounters here. Damaging items. The rule for attacking and damaging items differs from the rules for characters. Attacks and spells don't normally damage items except for traps unless specified otherwise. If you have a shield, it can take damage if you use the block shield reaction. We've been talking a lot about shields on this channel. In fact, I did a dedicated video understanding the shield rule here because you have to actively use them. Oh, BJ Seward regarding the open setting, making a campaign setting for it, in fact. Okay, well, we will. I want to check it out. So, Guitar Guy Nick provides a clarification here. Just a clarification on critical immunities. As you can be immune to critical hits, you won't do critical damage, but the critical effects of the weapon still apply. Okay, so if you are immune to critical hits, you won't do critical damage, but any effects of the weapon will still apply. The GM's Alcove. Welcome, GM's Alcove. Good to see you. Andrew says, thumbs up for the holiday broadcast. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Oh, Charlie's going to watch on replay. No problem. Dumb adult stuff. Dumb adult work stuff. That's okay. Take care of that. The replay will be here. Glad to have you here. Now, the shield also, Vision says, I like how they set the shield in this game. There was somebody who posted a rather extensive comment on one of my Pathfinder videos about some recommended changes. He said he's been playing this game for a long time. And of course, everybody's got recommended changes, right? You know, it's the arrogance that I'm even reading through this, like going, oh, I haven't played this game yet. I'm looking through here now. How I think I would rather change up this or that for how I would like things to play. I want to play it raw, but you know, everybody's always thinking about, well, gee, wait a minute. Now, what if we did this? That's just the nature of the mind of the home brewer. But there was a really good extensive comment, and maybe we'll go over that in a video or something like that because it's worth bringing out. That somebody had 3 recommended changes, and he was saying that he thought that it was too easy to damage shields and have them break permanently in the game, and so he provided some changes to that and some other house rules And it was a very good post in the comments. And then I think he posted some more. So on some video, and I forget which one that is, that was out there. Otabat says, just ordered the beginner box for a reason I'm not sure is familiar, and I'm going to listen to this as I do house cleaning. Perfect. Perfect. I'd like to learn before I get the box. Exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. Right. Yep. So you can watch this while you're doing your house cleaning, learn how to play whatever it is that you're doing, or painting miniatures. And then maybe you know something about it before your box arrives. Okay, so movement. The beginner's box includes a map with 1-inch grid to track the placement and movement of creatures and objects. Medium creatures, like the heroes, take up 1 square on the grid, as do small creatures. Large creatures take up a 2x2 area. And we do have that, a very nice map grid in here. Difficult terrain in the whole box set. Difficult terrain is any terrain that impedes your movement, like thick undergrowth or rubble. Moving into a square of difficult terrain costs an extra 5 feet of movement. This additional cost doesn't increase when moving diagonally. See, moving on a grid below. You can't step into difficult terrain. And step was that deliberate 5 feet of movement. Movement while you're jumping ignores the terrain that you jump over. Let's go ahead and go right to moving on a grid. So here is our example right here. When a character moves on a grid, every 1-inch square of the play area is 5 feet across in the game world. Hence, a creature moving 25 feet in a straight line would move 5 squares. Because moving diagonally covers more ground, you have to count that movement differently. The first square of diagonal movement you make on a turn counts as 5 feet, but the second counts as 10 feet. So, and your count thereafter alternates between the two. This is, I remember this from some of the versions of D&D. This seems like, I like hexagons. I play a lot on hexagons. And, hence Terra tiles and a bunch of different things that I like with hexagons. I'm a fan of hexagons. Have been since MERP. MERP used hexagons. But, yep, squares can be easier in a lot of circumstances. But you end up with this crazy thing about diagonal movement, that you can't just constantly move diagonally. You'll be able to get further than you did. So that seems to be the fix on that. Every other diagonal move counts as 2 in any one turn. For example, if you move across 4 squares diagonally, you would count 5 feet, then 10 feet, then 5, then 10 for a total of 30 feet. You track your total diagonal movement across all your movement during a turn, but reset the count at the end of your turn. In this example, we got this guy right here. Valorous strides, we can move up to his speed, which is 25 feet. He moves 5 feet horizontally. Then his first diagonal costs 5 more feet. Now his second diagonal costs 10 feet. For the last square of movement, taking another diagonal would cost 5 feet, but moving horizontally into the rubble would take 10 because the rubble is difficult square. If Valorous moved up or down instead, he could move 1 more square. Okay. Oh, so now we go to reactions to movement. Some reactions are triggered by a creature using an action with the move trait. That's why these traits are important here. The most notable example is an attack of opportunity, which fighters and some monsters have. A creature with an attack of opportunity can use it when a nearby enemy uses an action with the move trait or when the enemy leaves a nearby square. The step basic action doesn't trigger reactions based on movement, and neither does movement caused by other creatures like a shove. So you can't be shoved away and have an attack of opportunity triggered. Moving through a creature. Avalon says, yeah, many people prefer sturdy shield over other types as they have much more HP. So many people just make it a rune to put on over or any other shield to give it additional HP. Daniel Tucker says, think about shields, you see the damage. Thinking about shields, you see the damage. Oh, yeah, you see the damage that's rolled before you choose to block. Yes, that's true. Now, actually, that may have been something that he was changing up in a house rule, this other commenter. But it can go either way. But right, according to this, you do that. Yeah, you can see the damage roll before you block. Amir says that diagonal movement is so fiddly. Well, and hexes fixes that. That's one of the reasons I like hexes, but there are other problems with hexes. Some people don't like that it seems to imply you're like jig-jagging, around something like that, which I've never perceived it that way. You were counting the hexes like that. Captain Jack says just ignore this and has diagonal movements be 5 feet. Guitar Guy Nick says there are hex crawls in Pathfinder 2, but they're usually used for world maps and bigger distances. Yeah, that's pretty common, I think. hexes for world maps. It makes a lot of sense, even if you move to squares for your encounter. So moving through a creature, you can move through the space of any creature willing to let you. If you want to move through an unwilling creature space, you can tumble through that creature space using acrobatics. You can't end your turn in a space occupied by another creature, though you can end a move action in its square, provided that you immediately use another action to leave that square. If two creatures end up in the same square by accident, the GM determines which one is forced out of the movement square of the square, or whether one falls over and gains the prone condition. You can stand in the same square as a prone creature if that creature is willing, unconscious, or dead, and is your size modifier, and is your size or smaller. The GM might allow you to climb atop a larger creature that's dead or unconscious in some situations. Falling. When you fall more than 5 feet, upon landing, you take bludgeoning damage equal to or half the distance you fell. Falling more than 5 feet, you're not rolling there. It says you take bludgeoning damage equal to half the distance you fell. So a 10-foot fall would be 5 points of damage. If you take any damage from a fall, you fall over and gain the prone condition. You can grab an edge as a reaction to reduce the damage from some falls. Roll a reflex save against the DC to climb its surface as chosen by the GM. If you succeed, you catch yourself and take damage as if the fall were 20 feet shorter. 30 feet shorter on a critical success. On a critical failure, you take 10 bludgeoning damage for every 20 feet you've fallen, then keep falling. Oh, so grabbing an edge can also, to climb the surface, to grab, and that stops your climb. But otherwise, you keep falling. Ugh. So that, we do have inflationary hit points here. So we are increasing the number of hit points. But this rule, I suppose, keeps you from just rolling, taking a dive off of something and rolling very poorly as far as damage goes, or very good in the case of the character, I suppose, and being able to survive something horrifically unreasonable. So some characters may still have a lot of hit points, but at least that's defining the amount of damage you take from a fall. Which makes sense that, you could still roll for it, but this seems to make sense. It seems to be solving that problem. At least a little bit. Yeah, I'm sure you could run. Yeah, while not official, it's easy to run Pathfinder and Hexgrid. Probably so. Guitar Guy Nick says that something important of note to note is less than 20% of creatures have an attack of opportunity. This enables a lot of movement in combat. That is good. We talked about movement in combat last time as well. So having a flow on the screen, having a flow in the middle of the game is good, because I've played some games where, you run up to each other and then your miniatures really don't matter because you run up to each other and then boom, you're sitting there stuck, right? And you just hit each other and attack until it's all over. So being able to have greater flow of the miniatures on the table, I think, is really good. Oh, Stray pointed out the Ravenkeep store. Yes, thank you. That ravenkeep.net is where we set up all the things that we're making here on the channel, and I have made in the past, board games and such. Working on my own tabletop RPG system, but I want to play and need systems to actually play since mine is super unfinished. Well, we're working on one here on the channel as well, Fated Edge. We're working on that on Tuesdays, and that was actually part of my inspiration for going through all this as well. I needed to go through all of this, a bunch of different RPGs as research. So I just had the idea, hey, let's do them live. So here we are. Oh, Chimlak says, long-time Pathfinder 2 player here. We'll try to help answer any questions that come up. Thank you. See, Chimlak, we're back to the damage doubling on the crit, which is good. We're trying to get clarification on that. All damage doubles on a crit. The only exception, now by all, that means the dice, what the dice roll and the modifier. We saw that was important. That's probably what's being meant by all here. All damage doubles on a crit. The only exception is the extra damage is actually created by the crit, such as the deadly weapon trait. Thank you. Jason, learning? Yep, definitely. That's what we're doing. Falling hurts. Yeah. So we are finding. Jason asks, what book am I reading? This book is the Hero's Handbook, Beginner's Box, Player's Handbook Guide. So this is what's inside the beginner's box. There's a lot of info in the beginner's box. You can play a lot of Pathfinder, it turns out, with this. We do have the core rulebook over here for reference as well. So I've got the core rulebook if we need it. But really, we've been going through this beginner's PHB, and there's so much information in it. I mean, we could play for a long, long time with just this. Cover. When you're behind an obstacle that could block weapons, guard you against explosions, and make you harder to detect, you're behind cover. Standard cover gives you a +2 circumstance bonus to AC, to reflex saves against area effects, and to stealth checks to hide, sneak, or otherwise avoid detection. Creatures give lesser cover, which grants +1 circumstance bonus to AC. A creature with standard cover can attempt to use the stealth skill to hide, but lesser cover isn't sufficient for using stealth. So we have lesser cover and standard cover. Lesser cover provides a +1 bonus to AC, and you cannot hide behind it. Standard cover provides a +2 bonus to AC, reflex, and stealth, and you can hide. You might simultaneously have cover against one creature and not another. Cover applies only if your path to the target is partially blocked. If a creature is entirely behind a wall or the like, you typically can't target it at all. The GM decides whether or not you have cover and whether it's lesser or standard. Targets. Some actions have you select one or more specific targets. You can't select a target if it's out of range, you can't tell where it is, or if it doesn't match restrictions on who you can target, or if some other ability prevents you from being targeted. Some targets affect an ally. An ally is bolded here. This means this must be someone on your side, often another hero, but it might be a bystander you're trying to protect. You aren't your own ally. Okay, you are not your own ally, so it has to be cast on an ally. You cannot cast it on yourself. If it isn't clear, the GM decides who counts as an ally and who an enemy. If an ability that targets a willing creature doesn't do anything, unless the target allows you to affect them. Only you can decide whether or not your hero is willing. And the GM decides whether an NPC is willing. Melee attacks can target someone only if they're adjacent, right next to the attacker on the grid. Being next to them diagonally on the corner of their space is still adjacent. So diagonal attacks work in this game. I would have figured that was the case. Some abilities, such as the Lunge, Fighter Feat, or the Enlarge spell, let someone reach creatures further away. Large creatures can always reach creatures up to 10 feet away. Durations. Some actions have effects that last longer than actions themselves. These effects are measured by a duration, something that might last until the end of your turn, for 1 minute, or for other lengths. Once the duration is over, the effect ends. When a duration is measured in rounds, the remaining duration decreases by 1 at the start of each turn. We've got that specifically in there when that counter iterates or decreases by 1. Point this out. Yes, Jason, they are doing a 25% sale on Pathfinder stuff. I believe it's called, check up the code. What was the code? Is it Open RPG or something like that? Yeah, they've you can get into Pathfinder right now at 25% off. Yeah, and Chimlike is right. There's also some other free, if you get the PHB, or they call it the core book. If you get the core book, there is some type of extra free book you get as well. So check that out. Now seems to be a good time. They are taking advantage. Major effective business move on the part of Paizo. Now is a great time to get in on this. Okay, so we were just looking at durations. So hit points, healing, and dying. This is important because how do we die, right? Or how do we get hurt? Actually, before I go over here, let's look at flanking. So flanking. If you and an ally are on opposite sides or corners of an enemy, you are flanking that enemy. This gives the creature the flat-footed condition, giving it a -2 circumstance penalty to AC against attacks from anyone flanking it. If you stop flanking the creature, the flat-footed condition ends. You can flank or help an ally flank only if you meet the following conditions. No condition or effect is preventing you from acting or attacking. So if you're held or something like that, then you cannot assist in flanking. You're holding melee weapons. You must be holding melee weapons or able to make an attack, a fist attack. You are close enough to reach the enemy with an attack. So 1, Kira and Valorous are flanking the ogre. Mysterial and Valorous are not flanking the ogre. 3, the Hobgoblin and Ogre flank Ezrin because the ogre is large and can reach 10 feet away. Oh, so Ezrin over here is being flanked because of the ogre. That's important to remember. That's important to remember because the ogre is large. Areas. Some FX occupy an area of a specific size or shape. There are 3 types of areas: bursts, cones, and lines. You can use the diagrams to the right as templates rather than measuring squares manually. Using an ability with an area affects everyone in that area. For instance, if you cast the Burning Hand spell, everyone in the cone, friend or foe here, must attempt a reflex save. And if they fail, they take fire damage. A creature that's inside the area but totally behind a barrier, such as on the other side of a wall from your target's origin, is not affected. Burst. A sphere expanding out from the center. So these are bursts right here. You can set the center of a burst in any grid intersection in range. Oh, you center it on an intersection. Okay, that's important. You can center the burst on any grid intersection within range, which generates this type of area for that burst. Cone. A quarter circle shoots out from you. Choose whether to aim the cone straight out from you or diagonally when you use this ability. And then a line right here. A line shoots straight from a corner of your square in the direction that you choose. So you can actually do some pretty funky looking lines here. So all of these are 60-foot lines, including this janky looking one right here. But apparently that is allowed. All right, hit points, damage, and dying. We might have looked at this the very first day, but it's time to refresh my memory and keep going and make sure this is all together. Ratbo says so few attack of opportunities make casters way harder to play. Enemies can just run into melee with you. Colonel Kronk says, have you checked out Black Hack? There are some very interesting game mechanics. Yes, we had an episode of The Morning Grind a couple of weeks ago, I suppose, on the Black Hack. And I thought that was a great episode. And I did really enjoy going over that game because I agree with you. I've thought about Black Hack and also the Index Card RPG. We went over the Index Card RPG as well. I really liked stuff that was in Black Hack and Index Card RPG. I've been thinking about things inside Black Hack quite a bit as I've been developing Fated Edge. So yes, if you haven't seen Black Hack, I recommend checking it out or watching the Morning Grind video on the Black Hack. Vision says, do they break down differences between cover and concealment in this game? I haven't seen concealment yet. Now, the cover seems to imply that you're concealed here, but or it's, whether or not you can hide here. But so far, I have not seen anything yet that talks about that. Okay, open gaming. So we got confirmation. Yes, open gaming is the code. So if you're trying to get stuff from Paizo, make sure you use the code open gaming. I think, I'm not sure it applies to everything. I think it applies to the starting stuff for Pathfinder. So yes. Oh, and we're told they stack. Open gaming and Holiday 23, they stack. I guess that's another code. So check that out, everybody. Thank you for letting us know. Oh, Holiday 23, Chimlike is saying, is 15% off a single order of Pathfinder or Starfinder and Kobold Press print products until January 18th. Oh, nice. Oh, and Chimlak, Open Gaming is 25% off Beginner Box, Core Rulebook, and or Cole Rulebooks Pocket Edition until January 25th. Yeah, Jason, we were just going over diagonal movement. We did that a few minutes ago, but yes, there is. If you're doing diagonal on a grid, you've got to adjust your diagonal movement every other time you move a diagonal. Okay, hit points, dying, and healing. Your maximum hit points represents your health, wherewithal, and heroic drive when you're in good health and rested. When you take damage, subtract the damage from your current hit points. Some spells, items, and other effects can heal you, and resting overnight heals you too. When you're healed, you regain hit points equal to the amount healed. You usually can't go above your maximum hit points. Getting knocked out. Creatures can't have fewer than 0 hit points. Most enemies who fall to 0 hit points die and are destroyed. This removes them from play. If the attack was non-lethal, though, the enemy doesn't die, and they're instead knocked out for a significant amount of time, usually 1 minute or more. Heroes, on the other hand, don't automatically die when they reach 0 hit points. Instead, they are knocked out, but they are still at risk of death. 2 special conditions come into play when you're knocked out. First of all, dying. This condition includes a number that measures how close you are to death. You die when you reach dying 4. So we had seen like dying 1, dying 2, dying 3. So you actually die when you reach dying 4. Wounded. When you get knocked out and come back, you're in greater danger. The wounded condition makes your dying condition far worse. So when you reached 0 hit points, you are knocked out with the following effects. Immediately move your initiative position to directly before the turn in which you are reduced to 0 hit points. Oh, you have to move your position in initiative. Immediately move your initiative position to directly before the turn in which you were reduced to 0 hit points. I'm not sure exactly what that means. To directly before the turn in which you were reduced to 0 hit points. Okay, let's go on. You gain the dying 1 condition. If the effect that knocked you out was a critical success from the attacker or the result of your critical failure, you gain the dying 2 condition instead. Oh, nice. Another effect of critical hits. If the damage was dealt by a non-lethal attack or effect, you don't gain the dying condition. Instead, you gain the unconscious condition and have 0 hit points. So that's also a way to manage what was used to be called like subdual damage. How do you handle non-lethal? So if you want to knock somebody out, hey, I just want to punch him and knock him out or something like that. Actually, I think it's much harder to do in real life than we want it to be in RPGs, or some people want it to be in RPGs or is in movies, especially if you've got something like a long sword. You're holding the long sword or a short sword. I just want to knock that person out with like that's kind of difficult. But at least this describes how it can be done. You've got to be non-lethal and you've got to take out the last of their hit points. At least that is the mechanical way to do that now. So the GM's alcove says you need a 5+ flat check to attack a concealed target. Oh. You know what? I remember that. We were talking about that yesterday. That if you've got somebody that you cannot see, so there was that. We didn't see that there was something about that was saying that if the person isn't like, oh yeah, it was like in complete darkness, right? That was one of the situations. So for instance, if you are concealed, so thank you for bringing this up, GM's alcove. So under light and darkness, it does say creatures and objects in dim light have the concealed condition. So there is the concealed condition. We just haven't gotten it to it yet. But that's when you get it, meaning any attack or other effect that would target them fails unless the creature trying to target them succeeds at a DC 5 flat check, which means rolling a 5 or higher on a D20 without adding anything. A creature with dark vision or low light vision can see in the dim light. So yes, so there is concealment. That is a condition, and that's how that operates. Thank you very much, GM's alcove. Hide has degrees, Avalon says. You can try to hide if you have at least standard cover. Cover grants you a bonus to AC and reflex depending on level. Concealment makes the attacker have a 20% chance of missing a DC 5 check 11 if hidden. Gotcha. Yeah, Armidian says, resting is not the best way to heal. It only gives you a few HP. You would usually need to treat wounds for faster healing. And we've looked at treat wounds because that's part of the medicine skill we were looking at. And I was very happy to find, and I think a lot of other people were too, that there's actually a lot of stuff that you can do with the healing or the medicine skill, which makes it more valuable than it was in 5th edition. And treating wounds, people were saying medicine's really good in this game, that medicine skill. And one of the things you can do is treat wounds. We did look at that yesterday. Okay, so when you're reduced to 0 hit points, you also fall down and drop what you're holding. You gain the prone condition and the unconscious condition. The unconscious condition is described in the sidebar. You can't lose the unconscious condition while you have 0 HP. So unconscious, let's see what that is. The unconscious condition has the following effects. You can't use any action, reactions, or activities. You cannot see. You take -4 status penalty to your AC, perception, and reflex saves. You're able to make a reflex save? You have the flat-footed condition. This gives you -2 circumstance penalties to the AC. This penalty combines with the status penalty above for a total of -6 to your AC. So waking up. If you're unconscious with 0 hit points, but you don't have the dying condition, you naturally return to 1 hit point after a while. The GM determines the amount of time it takes for you to recover, usually 10 minutes to several hours. If you have healed to more than 0 HP, you lose the unconscious condition and can act normally on your next turn. If you're unconscious with 1 HP or more because you're asleep or you're unconscious due to a spell, you wake up and lose the unconscious condition in one of the following ways. You take damage, but if the damage drops you to 0 hit points, you follow the rules for getting knocked out instead of waking up. You receive healing, other than natural healing you get from resting. Someone shakes you awake using the interact action. So here's another use of interact. Loud noises are made around you, though this way doesn't automatically remove the condition. At the start of your turn, you automatically attempt a perception check against the noises DC, waking up if you succeed. Use DC 5 for a battle or the stealth DC of a creature sneaking around. The GM decides if you wake up either because you've had a restful night of sleep or something disrupted your rest. Okay, so dying. If you ever reach dying 4, for any reason, you die immediately. If you take damage while you already have the dying condition, you increase your dying value by 1 or by 2 if the damage came from your attacker's critical hit or your own critical failure. So let me say it again. If you take damage while you already have the dying condition, you increase your dying value by 1 or 2 if it was due to a critical hit. Because you can't lose more hit points. You're at 0. And it says you cannot have less than 0 hit points. So if you take additional damage, what you're doing is increasing the dying factor, your dying condition. If you ever go from 0 to 1 hit point or more, you automatically lose the dying condition and wake up. Anytime you lose the dying condition, you gain the wounded condition described below. When you have the dying condition at the start of each of your turns, and we did have to adjust the initiative value here. At the start of each of your turns, you must attempt a flat check, a 20 roll without adding anything against a DC equal to 10 plus your current dying value to see if you get better or worse. So your flat check is DC 10 plus your current dying value. This is called a recovery check. Use the following effects for your recovery check. Critical success, reduce dying value by 2. Success, reduce dying value by 1. Failure, increase your dying value by 1. So this is how you just sit there and die if nobody helps you. Critical failure, increase your dying value by 1. If you have the wounded condition, you die immediately. More crunch in death and dying. Okay, so we got clarification here. It says, you change your initiative to before the thing that knocked you out. This way, all your party has a chance to help you. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Because this says, the rule says, immediately move your initiative position to directly before the turn in which you were reduced to 0 HP. So I was confused about what it meant regarding the turn. But you remove your initiative position to immediately, that would be the turn. Yeah. Okay. Immediately before the turn where you were reduced to 0 HP. So I was reduced to 0 HP on this turn. So what happens? I move my initiative value to just before this current turn. That makes sense. That would be before the thing that knocked me out. Thank you. Gotcha. Yes. And that does help everything out. So that means that, yes. So that you're not, everybody's got a chance to react to that situation and try to help you. So that makes sense. Ratbo says, I love that many classes have things to do in 10-minute breaks. Healer treats wounds, monk meditates, fighter fixes her shield. And then Kemblak says, -6 to AC is lethal. Constructs and undead are automatically destroyed when they hit 0 hit points. Vision is asking, does that include players who are constructs and undead? Oh, yeah. Ratbo is saying, because remember that we're not just critting on 20s now. We're critting on anything that's 10 or above the AC modifier. So by dropping the AC by 6, you are increasing the crit chance dramatically. Let's see. So we had a question here about, okay, so the undead and constructs. So there is apparently a workaround for that. Stray says, good morning. Yes. Oh, no, wait, hold on. That wasn't to that. So Captain Joystick says, Poppet gets around that by being humanoid. They made it explicitly not a problem for automaton PCs. So Ollie Wright says the wounded condition is a big deal. It stops the whack-a-mole you get in 5e when people go to 0 HP, then jump up again over and over and over and over again. I agree that's a problem. Avalon says, it says turn because you could be knocked out by a persistent damage or a complex trap. I love this. I love being able to talk to everybody in real time. I think we're looking at basically the combined intelligence of the entire group getting through this. I think this, hopefully, if people are trying to look at Pathfinder, understand Pathfinder, I hope they find their way to this stream, because this has been extremely valuable for me. I hope it has been for other people. Everybody who already knows the rules has been extremely helpful. Okay, so recovering, okay, and then wounded, which we're going to talk about solving the whack-a-mole problem. So recovering. If you lose the dying condition by succeeding at a recovery check, you're still at 0 HP and remain unconscious, but you can wake up as described in the sidebar. We just looked at that. As with so much time to recover from dying, you gain the wounded condition. So what is the wounded condition? Wounded. When you have the dying condition and lose it, regardless of the reason, you gain the wounded 1 condition. If you already have the wounded condition, increase this value by 1 when you lose the dying condition. A wounded condition makes getting knocked out more dangerous. If you gain the dying condition while wounded, increase the dying condition's value by your wounded value. And we know when you get to dying 4, you're done. You are out when you get to dying 4. So if you have been wounded and you gain the dying condition again, you now begin at dying 2. And if you've already got wounded 3, so if you're already wounded 3 and then you're knocked out again, that's dying 4. And so you'd be out of there. If you have enough time, you can get rid of the wounded condition. This condition goes away regardless of its current value. If someone successfully restores hit points to you while using the medicine skill to treat wounds, or if you're restored to your maximum hit points and rest, this condition goes away regardless of its current value. Regardless of its current values, that's important. The condition just completely leaves. It's not reducing the condition, it's eliminating. If someone successfully restores hit points to you by using the medicine skill to treat wounds, which treat wounds, you have to be skilled or proficient in medicine. We had that division in this game. They're really like, there are actions that you can take using skills, some of them that you can use untrained. It specifically tells you, and other ones you have to be trained. Treating wounds, you have to be trained. Or if you're restored to your maximum hit points and rest for 10 minutes. So not partial hit points restoration, but if you are restored to your maximum hit points, you lose your wounded condition. I want to look at this over here, but just for the sake of completeness right in here, I'm going to turn over and look at the treat wounds just so that we have that information here as well, because we've been interrupted a couple of times, or at least once when we were reading about all of this because of the breaking news from WotC. So since we're talking about death and dying, let's take a look at medicine, and then we'll look at the conditions. So let's see here. Jorge says, yeah, I watched a video of Mark Seifter where he would explain the reasoning behind this. I think it would be great to talk to him. I was watching him on the Roll for Combat channel. I think it might be great to, I wonder if he would be willing to talk to us over here on this channel. So yeah, this is a distinction between NPCs and PCs. Yes, and the GM's alcove says, keep in mind that a turn refers to the creature character in turn in initiative. A round refers to the 6 seconds where everyone goes. The crit range is cool. Yeah, I liked it. Something similar has been in GURPS, and I've always liked that too. It means that if you're more skilled or the enemy is really deficient, you have more likely to take him out. Jason says, this is great for learning Pathfinder. Thank you. I'm glad you think so. I'm glad you think so. GM's alcove says, might seem like a lot of rules, but actually gameplay is very smooth. And then Guitar Guy Nick says, your recovery checks are DC 10 plus dying value 2, whereas in 5e it's DC 10. Yes, so the higher your dying value goes up, the more difficult it is, and you're headed out. Your team has got to get to you. Yes. Jefferson says, if you die and come back to life, you'd better have a good plan or run as fast as possible. Maybe he will. Maybe he will. I don't know him. I'll have to reach out and see. Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, this is now is the time to talk, it seems like. Okay, so for clarification on medicine, because this involves how to get us back in action. So medicine is a skill which you can use trained and untrained. So we have the following actions that you can use untrained with medicine. Recall knowledge. You can recall knowledge about diseases, injuries, poisons, and other ailments. The description of this activity is on page 50. You can stabilize. Now, see, here we have the word activity right here, but this is specifically regarding recall knowledge, which is a one action thing. Okay, but anyway, stabilize, which is two actions. So it's an activity because it's taking two. But you can do this untrained. So this is how you might help somebody who has fallen out. You try to stabilize a creature that has 0 hit points and the dying condition. You need to use healer's tools in order to do this. So you got to have that with you. Roll a medicine check with a DC of 21 if the creature has dying 1. So it's not easy. You can do it. I mean, so you're using this untrained, so you wouldn't have a proficiency bonus, but you can still attempt it. You're trying to stabilize the dead. Actually, that's a very difficult check, isn't it? So if you are not trained in medicine, this isn't easy to do, but you can still try. I guess that's a lot like real life, right? Okay. Roll the medicine check with a DC of 21 if the creature has dying 1, 22 if they have dying 2, or 23 if they have dying 3. On a success, they lose the dying condition, but remain unconscious and gain the wounded condition, which we understand a little bit more about that now. I see where they're going with this. Failure, you do not improve the target's condition, but critical failure, you increase the target's dying by 1. So if you critically fail, having somebody who is untrained in medicine, well, I like this too. I'm understanding a lot better now as if we've been through this for these days. So yeah, so the critical failure potential there is rather large. So if you are not trained in medicine, yeah, you want to help them out, but there's the potential to increase their dying value, and they only get to 4. But then staunch bleeding, you can also try. But let's see, this is something you can try untrained if you got somebody's bleeding to death. You can try to give a creature that has persistent bleeding damage condition an extra chance to remove the damage. They're helping them get an extra chance. We've been over this. So they're getting an extra chance. You need to use the healer's tools to do so. Roll your medicine check. And if you didn't think about bringing healer's tools with you, not just the cleric, you can't do this anyway. Roll your medicine check against a DC chosen by the GM. This is usually the DC of the effect that caused the persistent damage. Success. The creature attempts a flat check to end the persistent bleeding damage. Ah, yes. Okay. So turn off this heater down here. So remember, and we also found out that our persistent damage is generally a DC 15, because that's what they get to check at the end of each one of their turns, a DC 15. So that's why, but it also says that typically the DC that caused the persistent damage. So that may be different. But then if it's a success, then that person that you're operating on or trying to staunch the bleeding on gets to roll that DC 15 flat check again. Failure, you do not affect the persistent bleed damage. Critical failure, the creature immediately takes damage from their persistent bleed damage, which would be no good. So don't do that. Now, trained medicine. So we're looking at trained medicine skill. You can actually treat wounds and try to get people hit points back. Let's see what's going on here. Chase says, however, if you have the doomed condition, the lower your dying value gets, the closer to death you are. We'll get to doomed soon enough, though. Yeah, it sounds like you do not want to have the doomed condition. That seems like a bad thing. Guitar Guy Nick says, activity, I think, means outside of combat, because you can't treat wounds in combat. That's a particular feat called battle medicine. Oh, okay. So that's important. So you're saying that by the use of the term activity right here. Okay, so that's recall. Okay, so that was recall knowledge that had that. So you can't recall knowledge about disease, injuries, poisons, and other ailments in the middle of combat. But surely, see, you can't treat wounds. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You can't treat wounds. So okay. So that the use of the term activity was specifically related to recall knowledge, but you're talking about treat wounds because it does say the first sentence of this is see exploration. Yeah. You're yes. Look at here. So the tag here, the trait says exploration, healing, and manipulate. So this can't be done in the middle of an encounter. The treat wounds. This is after that happens because it says you spend 10 minutes treating one living creature, injured living creature. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to do that inside of 6 seconds. Not happening. Thank you, Guitar Guy Nick. And Ollie Wright says medicine is extremely handy in Pathfinder. If it's listed, check out the battle medicine feat. It lets you use the medicine skill mid combat. Armadian says stabilizing while untrained basically requires a 20 on the die. Yeah. So I originally, when I was reading through this, before I completely got the understanding of kind of my head around what's going on here, I was like, well, that's nice that everybody can stabilize or staunch somebody's bleeding. So that's awfully kind. Okay. And I suppose it is, but it's actually not easy. It's not that kind because this is a hard check to make. Like I think it should be. I mean, that makes sense to me. You can try it, but you're gonna have to roll really well, and chances are you can do additional damage too. So Oathbat says, yeah, something like bandaging a wound can help you out, but if you see bone poking out, most people won't have an easy time. I see it more as the damage than the skill in this sense. Yeah, and yeah, very hard and kills you or on a 1 to 10 or adds the dying. Soldiers training. Healers, Kemlack says healers, tools, and a bandolier are worth their weight in gold. And it makes sense that, hey, everybody have your medical pack. When I've been putting together my modern day adventuring gear, putting together the trauma pack, which I guess would be the equivalent of the healer's kit here, very important to have with you. Extremely important to have with you because you need the tools. A Guitar Guy Nick says, no, you cannot recall knowledge in combat. Okay. So treat wounds. Okay. So treat wounds. This is a thing you can only do if you are trained or have proficiency in the medicine skill. So this is a specialist thing, but it can only be done outside of combat because you need 10 minutes, it says. You spend 10 minutes treating one injured living creature. You can choose yourself if you want. You need to use healer's tools to do so. Page 46. A creature can benefit. Take this down. A creature can benefit from treat wounds only once per hour, even if multiple creatures are trying to treat them. Attempt a DC 15 medicine check. So that's a lower value check, plus you'll be proficient in it. If you're an expert in the medicine skill, you can instead make the DC 20 to increase the hit points regained on a success or critical success by 10. So if you're an expert in the medicine skill, and we have different levels of proficiency, so I'm assuming that's referring to the level of proficiency. So if you are an expert, then you have an additional option. You can choose to instead make this a DC 20 check to increase the hit points regained on a success or critical success by 10. Okay, but ordinarily on a DC 15 medicine check, after 10 minutes, if you critically succeed, then the target regains 4d8 hit points and loses the wounded condition if they have it, which that's a lot of hit points, or at least potentially a lot of hit points. 4d8 and loses the wounded condition. You can continue treating the injured person for a total of 1 hour to double the hit points regained. So that's really good. That is critical success, though. But on success, you're giving them back 2d8 hit points, and they lose the wounded condition if they have it. You can continue treating the injured creature for a total of 1 hour to double that as well. So if you got time, you can sit there and help them out even more. Failure, the target does not regain any hit points, but if you critically fail, then you do hurt them, and they take 1d8 points of damage. So that does sound essential. There is just one more, well, basically one more page here. Even though we're running long, I'm really interested in continuing here, and that will take us all the way through this. I don't want to have to come back to this, the beginner's book, handbook, and I've learned so much. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you all, especially who's helped clarify these rules. I'm really excited about this. I really am. Let's see what's in the chat. Then we'll go to conditions. Maybe Doomed is in here. If not, we'll look up Doomed. So, Beavercoin says, I usually use the level DC for the creatures that inflict the persistent bleed. The level DC for the creatures that inflicted the persistent bleed. As opposed, because that's what allows the person to get the other flat check. Yeah, Daniel Trucker says, treat wounds is 10 minutes. The feat battle medicine allows you to do it in action, as an action in battle. Real emergency kind of thing. That sounds extremely useful. Captain Joystick says, also rope. Always have some rope. Never know when you're going to need a rope. No, Beaverkin says, most certainly you can recall knowledge in combat. Yeah, okay, so we can. I kind of thought, yes, recall knowledge is a combat action. So we're getting additional clarification here. And there is also, Chase says, there is a continual recovery skill feat that allows you to treat a single patient more often. Yeah, so Captain Joystick is also saying that our proficiency ranks go untrained, trained, expert, master, and then legendary. Daniel says, no magic is needed to be a healer in this game. Well, that's a good point, too. So you don't have to always be the cleric. You could be anybody and still have the medicine trait, which seems like a good thing for adventures or the medicine skill. Seems like a good thing for adventures to have. Because what if your person who's skilled in medicine goes down? Better have somebody else to be able to do that and treat that person. Atrol says, treat wounds is the most important, consistent, and powerful form of healing in the game. Pretty much mandatory on at least one person, in my opinion. So Ollie Wright says, recall knowledge is often a great thing to do with your third action. You can use it to learn an enemy's weaknesses. Vision says, it's like how every soldiers are trained in combat life-saving. Right, yeah, you want everybody to be done with that. But you can also, be a cleric with medicine skill. And I do play, it seems like everybody's got a couple of classes that they play a lot. Traditionally, I play a lot of clerics. I also play fighters. I've been playing wizards lately, try to break out of that. But I play a lot of clerics. I never mind playing the cleric. I enjoy it. Let's see. Yep, exactly. I was bringing up the IFAC. The Vision says every soldier is equipped. Not only after the training, but you need your tourniquets. Right. Everybody's got their IFAC. Ratbo says there's also risky surgery. Heal more, but make it harder. And it comes with the barber background. Really? Oh, the barber background. There's also risky surgery. The barber background. I like that. So actually, recalling knowledge in battle is one of the most important things that you can do, we're told. And Guitar Guy Nick says, I don't know if this is covered yet, but it's expected that before combat, you should be at full health. But you, as the GM, decide if it's safe for them to treat wounds. Okay, so conditions. I love conditions. We've talked about conditions with regard to like things like aspects, because I talk a lot about fate, too. We've covered a lot of fate here. And there's a lot of things I like about fate, but there are a lot of things that we've talked about on this channel that fate doesn't quite get right, which is why we've been working on the Fated Edge system. But one of the things that I love are aspects or conditions. And I know that Pathfinder has a lot of them. So I think that is great. So I want to be able to use these because I think that conditions, aspects, things like that are a great way to control things or explain things or manipulate the situation during a game. So conditions are circumstances or states that affect you in some way. You might be gripped with fear or made slower by a spell. When you have a condition, it lasts until the stated duration ends. An ability removes it, or the condition's rules cause it to end. Some conditions have a number called a condition value that conveys the severity of the condition. If a condition value is ever reduced to 0, the condition ends. So concealed is a condition. While you're concealed from a creature, such as in thick fog, you're difficult for that creature to target. A creature that you're concealed from must succeed a DC flat check. Oh, we were talking about the difference between cover and concealment earlier. We went to find this in a different place, but here we definitely have the concealment right here. So this is it. This is exactly what we were saying. DC 5 flat check, roll a 5 or higher on a D20 without adding anything when you are targeted with an attack, spell, or other effect. This applies only to abilities with targets, not to ones with areas that don't require the user to select targets. If the flat check fails, the attack, spell, or effect does not affect you. Dying, see page 70. We went over that. Flat-footed, you're unable to defend yourself well. You take a -2 circumstance bonus penalty, to AC. Flanking makes you flat-footed only to creatures flanking you, but some effects make you flat-footed against everything. Frightened. This condition has no value. You take a status penalty equal to this value to all of your checks and DCs. Oh no, this condition has a value. This condition has a value. You take a status penalty equal to this value on all of your checks and DCs. All checks and DCs. At the end of each of your turns, the value of your frightened condition decreases by 1. When you reach 0, you're no longer frightened. So that is something that is ticking down and affecting everything. Grabbed. You're held in place by another creature. You're unable to move and have the flat-footed condition. If you use a manipulate action while grabbed, you must succeed on a DC 5 flat check. Roll a 5 or higher on a DC 20 without adding anything. Or the action does nothing. Roll the check after spending the action, but before the action happens. Persistent damage. Instead of taking persistent damage immediately, you take it at the end of each of your turns as long as you have the condition. Whatever gives you persistent damage tells you the damage type of the die and the dice. You roll the damage dice each time. After you take persistent damage, roll DC 15, flat check, 15 or higher on a D20 without adding anything, to see if you recover from the persistent damage. If you succeed, the condition ends. If you or someone else took steps to help you recover, like trying to snuff out a fire, the DC is 10. Okay, so somebody can help you out with that. Help put you out. If you gain persistent damage when you already have persistent damage of the same type, you keep only 1, whichever is the higher of the 2 die sizes. Prone, you're laying on the ground. You're flat-footed. And take -2 circumstance to penalty to attack rolls. Standing up ends the prone condition. Restrained, you cannot move, and you have the flat-footed condition. -2 circumstance penalty to AC. You can't use any action with the attack or manipulate traits except to attempt to escape. Restrained is stronger than grabbed, so grab doesn't affect you if you were restrained. Oh, okay. So we got a hierarchy here, too, with some of these. So restrained is worse than grabbed. Restrained will supersede over grab. Slow. When you regain your action at the start of your turn, reduce the number of actions you regain by your slowed value. Because slowed has its effect at the start of your turn, you don't immediately lose actions if you become slowed during your turn. Okay, so that's slowing you down reduces the number of actions you get. That would be bad. We do have leveling up here, which is covered out. Didn't we? I think this is just getting knocked out. I think we covered all of that. I think this is just a place that's a reference for all of that. What's on the back here? Quick, okay, quick, the back is quick rules reference for common roles, and then on the back of that is getting knocked out. So that's our quick rules reference right there. I didn't see Doomed. Let's look up Doom before we go. I'm gonna go over here to the core book. We'll see what's going on. Then we'll see what needs to be doomed. Jason is a paladin kind of person. Kim Lack says, my group there always have multiple characters with training in medicine and battle medicine. The worst condition is sickened, which was not in here. It's probably, I'm sure it's in here. Avalon says, armor class is considered a DC, so frightened is a really typical way to lower it. Oh, I thank you for pointing that out. I might not have noticed that on the first time through. So that would be, yes, frightened is also lowering your DC, including AC. Slowed is nasty. It sounded that way. And that's a great way. If you're working on this 3-action economy, being slowed like that, it makes sense. And just reducing the number of actions makes sense. Okay, so Stray says, core rulebook, page 619 to get to Doomed. What did we say? What did you say? 619. 619. List of conditions. Doomed. A powerful force has gripped your soul, calling you closer to death. Doomed always includes a value. The dying value at which you die is reduced by your doomed value. Oh, so if your maximum dying value is reduced to 0, you instantly die. When you die, you are no longer doomed. Oh, well, it makes sense. When you die, you are no longer doomed. Your doomed value decreases by 1 each time you get a full night's rest. So if you have doomed 4 and you're hit to 0 hit points, you're dead. That would be it. Well, you better be careful if you're doomed. So, but if you're doomed 2 and you're hit to 0 hit points, then you would become dying 2. Let's look up sickness, because people were saying that one's bad. What happens if you're sick? Stunned, sickened. Okay, sickened is you feel ill. Sickened always includes a value. You take a status penalty equal to this value on all your checks and DCs. Penalty equal to sickness on all checks and DCs. So that would include the AC as well, right? You can't willingly ingest anything, including elixirs and potions, while sickened. Whoa, so you can't even help yourself out with a healing potion. You can spend a single action retching in an attempt to recover, which lets you immediately attempt a fortitude save against the DC of the effect that made you sickened. On a success, you reduce your sickened value by 1 or by 2 on a critical success. That one is not good. That one is nasty. Yikes. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat. Does slowed stack? I don't know. Here, let me take we don't need auxiliary camera anymore. There we go. That way it's not blabbing at me. All right, let's see what's going on over here in the chat. Doom stuns. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. I love the fact there's so many conditions. I think that's a great aspect of the game. I remember that before I even had gone through all of this. I was like, "All right, conditions. Only the strongest slow applies." There are way more conditions, but I can understand now when you throw all those at beginner players. Doomed 3, you're screwed. I think if you hit Doom 4, you die on the spot. But also for new players, enfeebled affects strength, clumsy for dex, drained for con, and stupefied affects charisma, wisdom, and intelligence. Oh, so it's kind of like that, but only for certain components, certain ones. Yeah, if you're reduced to doom, if you're a doomed 4 and are reduced to 0 hit points, you die. That's the way I was understanding it. Stunned overrides slowed. So that's also this hierarchy that we were talking about here. So some things, if you've got 1, the other one will be supersede on top of it. So doomed 3 would make you at dying 1. Doomed 3 would make you die at dying 1. Yeah, that was my understanding as well. And drained is one of the hardest conditions to lower. It takes days. Now, that's what I want. Ollie Wright says there is a physical card set of condition cards printed by Paizo. It's very handy. That's exactly what I would want to have. I would want to have condition cards at the table to lay them out and hand them. That's exactly what I would want. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I have absolutely enjoyed going through the Pathfinder book and talking to everybody about it. Of course, I've enjoyed every day on the Morning Grind when we were going through different RPGs. So there'll be more Pathfinder to come, but at least at this point, we have completely gone through the starter set and learned a whole lot. I have really enjoyed this. Oh, and their cards. See, I love game cards too. I love game cards. So Paizo has tons of card sets for spells and everything. We'll have to get those and check them out. I'm excited about this. I want to do some development here for this. This has become something I'm really. Oh, and I don't. Do I have the GM screen? That's a good point. I'd be very interested to know the Pathfinder GM screen, because I like good, crunchy GM screens. Oh, look. Haven't even unboxed it. This might be a good thing to do on a Sunday during the potpourri if we're doing things that are going to require an entire episode. So I've got Pathfinder, the GM screen right here. I also have Age of Ashes, Hell Knight Hill. So I've got an adventure for it too. And I have a Pathfinder. Oh, this is for the playtest, but some other flip mat that they made. So I've got that. This is like the playtest adventure right here, Doomsday Dawn. So I am really interested to get into this a lot more and understand the Pathfinder SRD and potentially start some development. So this is great. The GM's Alcove says, thank you for doing these streams. Very enjoyable. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, crit and fumble decks? We're going to have to get them. We're going to have to get them. We're going to have to get them. So tomorrow we'll be working on creating an RPG, and we might even think about it in terms of the stuff we've learned here. We'll be working on creating Fated Edge. So I've got a meeting this afternoon about the story structure on the novels and also the potential film scripts. So I got to work on that before the meeting this afternoon. But then I also need to work on getting ready to talk about Fated Edge tomorrow, and then World Building Wednesday. We're doing world building on Wednesday. So there's a lot going on. The playtest adventure is deadly as heck. Limit testing. By the way, okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. More videos on the YouTube channel will be coming out. Clips and things like that are be coming out all on the channel today. So I look forward to seeing you on YouTube today. No live stream in the evening on Monday, unless there's some kind of breaking news. If there's some kind of crazy breaking news, then I might live stream tonight. But generally, no live stream on Monday nights. So we won't be here. Next live stream tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. when we're working on building an RPG. See you on YouTube.